finally get into our Coen Brothers series, beginning with their 1984 debut film, Blood Simple. We open up the show this week by talking about how and from whom the film got its startup money. Dave tells us about the title, while I address the use of sight, sound, and objects in the picture. We praise the cast, debate red herrings, and both agonize over the final scene. The only thing worse than getting your hand stabbed through a window is probably getting buried alive. Hopefully, neither one of those things happen to us. That's this week on Hell of a Picture. Welcome to Hell of a Picture, a movie podcast where we discuss an unforgettable film, and if it truly is a hell of a picture. My name is Andrew Bartlett, and I'm sitting across the internet, as I do each and every episode, from the Joel Coen to my Ethan Coen, Mr. David Hollinshurst. How are you today,
good,
sir?
Yeah, very good. Yeah, brothers in film.
Good.
That's
Brothers
nice.
in film.
That's good. Very good.
Yeah. I use
not often that you go sort of outside of the picture for your analogy. So usually it's within the narrative. This is good.
Yeah, because most of the time I don't think about it until the moment I'm reading the sentence, and then I think, well,
really,
fuck, what am I going to do here now? You've never got that before?
I've never gotten that impression. Yeah.
Oh yeah. The good ones are when I actually think about it before. And I was like, yeah, we're doing Joel and Ethan because we're doing a little Coen Brothers run here on Hell of a Picture. We did No Country for Old Men during our Oscar run. And now we love that so much and discussing that we're like, man, let's just go back and watch a couple of these Coen Brothers films. And it's been a while since I've watched a ton of the early Coen Brothers stuff. You haven't seen a bunch of it, correct?
Yeah, most of it, in fact, actually, this included. And looking through the filmography, there's quite a few blind spots in my Coen Brothers history. So excellent exercise. Very excited to go back and see the formative years of these guys as filmmakers and how.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly in this, there's a lot of presaging of what you will see in later films, which I'm sure we'll discuss in due course.
Absolutely. So we're starting off with a bang and with their first feature film, Blood Simple, which came out in 1984, and the year that we were both born.
Very good year.
It's a 40-year-old movie. So yeah, this is going to be fun. And yeah, I think let's just get right into it. We had a lot to discuss with this film. And yeah, Dave, let's start with, as we do each and every episode, with the rundown.
Yeah, let's not let this 40-year-old movie sit around any longer. Like us, it's decaying as we speak. So
absolutely.
So, the rundown. Blood Simple begins on a dark highway in a driving rain, deep in the heart of Texas. Ray and Abby are talking warily through the overtures to their imminent affair, and they are being followed. The man tailing them is Lauren Visser, a private eye hired by Abby's soon-to-be cuckolded husband, Marty, who owns a bar where Ray works. When Lauren delivers Marty photographs of Ray and Abby's indiscretion, the four of them are drawn inexorably into a gruesome imbroglio of murder for hire, double crosses, an assortment of other murders not for hire. Who's left alive? Who's dead? And what was it all for? Blood Simple was released, as we mentioned, in 1984. It was written by Joel and Ethan Coen, directed by Ethan Coen, and produced by Joel Coen, or so says the credits of the film. Though according to IMDb, both brothers directed and produced the film, but each of them were uncredited on one of the two for whatever reason. Also, according to IMDb, Joel and Ethan edited the film under the alias of Roderick James. I have no idea why. The film stars John Getz as Ray, a very young Frances McDormand as Abby, Dan Hedaya as Marty, and M. Emmett Walsh as the private eye, Lauren Visser. Now, the film has seen a few minutely different iterations over the years. The most noteworthy change between them has to be the opening text, which appears at the beginning of the theatrical release, but not the director's cut. Now, according to IMDb, once again, this text includes quotes from novelist Dashiell Hammett and filmmaker Alfred Hitchcock. The Hitchcock quote is as follows, quote, "In films, murders are always clean. I show how difficult it is and what a messy thing it is to kill a man." Now, the Dashiell Hammett quote is kind of uncertain. I wasn't able to find the exact line. Only references to the fact that it exists and that it elucidates the phrase blood simple. The title comes from Hammett's novel Red Harvest and describes the deleterious effect of violence on the human psyche. It's not hard to see the relevance of both of these quotes to the film, and you have to wonder why they were removed. This is another example of the director's cut totally supplanting the theatrical version of a film. It actually seems like great efforts have been made to scrub the original from memory, even though the difference between them is only about 3 minutes. I couldn't find anything other than the director's cut, and even that was kind of tricky to find, actually. And that is your rundown.
Yeah, the interesting thing I noted with respect to the director's cut and the theatrical run was the use of the song, the same old song by the Four Tops was used in the theatrical version, and then in the director's cut they used I've read it.
I'll correct you here. Actually, sorry.
Oh, Neil. I'm a believer.
Yeah,
Neil Diamond,
but
right?
A correction to that. So the theatrical release has the Four Tops, and the director's cut also has the Four Tops. It's the in-between home video release where they swapped in Neil Diamond, and it was because of internet. It was because of rights.
Oh,
it was just because of rights.
Okay.
So you have original with the Four Tops, home video with Neil Diamond, and then director's cut with the Four Tops once again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
It's convoluted. Yeah.
But it's always supposed to be the Four Tops. So
okay. It is correct.
That makes sense. Okay, cool. Okay. Great little rundown. It's, I think we can start by Coen brothers made this film for us, a budget of $1.5 million, which, doesn't seem like a lot, but it's also, this was their first film. It's kind of shocking to me that this was their first film. One thing I read about, which is kind of really interesting, was to get money for this, they shot a trailer, like an investor's trailer. Which did you watch the investor trailer?
I did not, but I did read the story that you're talking about. Yeah.
So I tracked it down. It's on YouTube, and I watched it. It actually have Bruce Campbell, who is from Evil Dead fame.
One of your favorites.
One of my favorites. Love Ash from the Evil Dead series, and it was because Coen brothers. They were I think they were ADs on the Evil Dead, and they rounded him up to be in this investor trailer, and you watch it, and it's it's really kind of cool, but at the same time, it's pretty janky. It's oh my God, this got funding, but it's it sets out the plot really good. And it's that shot, that iconic shot in the film where, Marty is kind of crawling across the pavement away from the car in the trailer. Bruce Campbell plays Marty, and he's sort of crawling around, and the guy, Ray, is with the shovel, and that's sort of so if you're an investor and you're seeing this, you're like, man, that looks pretty cool. Let's put some money into that. So they were able to sort of secure enough funding. I mean, the movie didn't make a ton, but it was enough, I think, and critically, it did really well. And it was it obviously really put them on the map.
Yeah, and also too, I think they went to Sam Raimi. He contributed some money to this, and
so he was the director of the Evil Dead series.
Yeah, and he actually ponied up a bit of dough, and apparently even he encouraged them, and I don't know how typical this is in film financing. I can't imagine to go door to door to solicit contributions
really?
from people. So apparently these guys just putting down shoe leather, just going out, knocking on doors, asking
hustling,
people
man.
to exactly. You can't knock the hustle. Yeah, you can't knock it. So that's pretty cool. Great. Not only the guerrilla style of funding for this movie. It's so down in the dirt. I love it.
They, and they, I think it took 8 weeks to shoot this. But like, it's really the fascinating thing I find about this film, um, with respect to the Coen brothers. It's just like, we see elements from like, No Country in Blood Simple, like they are really setting the groundwork for like a lot of the work they do throughout their career. And I think one thing too is just this idea of like merging, like it's a neo-noir like crime suspense thriller, but it's got like funny elements. They have this really great ability to sort of merge genres and sort of take all these like bits and pieces, and it's like really hard to watch at times too, like
Oh
really
man.
like that end scene is like, I was just like queasing, like, oh god, like no, like oh, like just like so hard to watch. So it's like it's their ability to really merge all these sort of genres is really impressive to see this even this early in their career.
Yeah, there's almost something of the horror genre in that final scene where his hand is
Yes.
pinned to the windowsill, and I was
Oh my god.
dreading the prospect that he was going to pull his hand and
I
it was going to
know.
go right
Oh,
through his fingertips, and they were going to show it, and like that's what it felt like it was
I
building
know.
to. Then to have him punch through the wall and pull it, like that was pretty cool. Yeah, that
Loved
I
it.
mean that climax is absolutely incredible. Man, and yeah, like the visceral quality of the violence is so powerful and
Yeah.
really important. Like I mean, because like I mentioned sort of in the rundown, like the name Blood Simple,
Yes.
and what that means and what it refers to really, from the novel Red Harvest is it's sort of like it refers to the state that people enter into when they're constantly surrounded by violence, like the violence's effect on your psyche. So like the actual line from the novel,
Mm,
it reads, this is the narrator speaking. I'm quoting, "This damn burg's getting to me. If I don't get away soon, I'll be going blood simple like the natives." And so in this novel, he's investigating a series of murders in a small town. And what he's describing is like the infectious quality violence is sort of having on people. And there's another quote later
right.
in the novel that reads, "You play with murder long enough, it gets to you in one of two ways. It makes you sick, or you get to like it." And this idea seems really important, not just to this film, but like you said, you like to Fargo, to like No Country for Old Men. It seems like violence, not just for its own sake, but thematically plays a big role, like in these movies for the brothers. Like, would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Yeah, this is this kind of running theme. And I think I did mention it in the No Country episode that we did, where it's like, yeah, these people making sort of bad decisions after bad
Yes.
decision,
Yes.
and it's just like, and a lot of it culminates with murder, and it's as we see in this film, um, the idea that Ray shows up to find Marty dead, and then, or what he thinks is dead. They're pretty brilliant in that moment, right? I noticed, he's slouched over, but like I'm watching it and I'm thinking, oh, this is like, you almost think of it as amateur filmmaking, because you're like, you can, is he kind of breathing? Like
Yeah.
the actor is supposed to be staying still, like he's like, I can sort of see him sort of breathing a bit. You know what I mean? And I
Hmm.
was like, oh, that was like not a good. And then you're sort of like later, and he's obviously still alive. You're like, oh, that was again intentional. But
Yeah.
like, again, Marty could have rang the cops, or could have like called Abby, or could have like even like got, I guess, what is Maurice, like the other guy, like
Hmm.
he could have like made a ton of other decisions, but his decision just in that one moment of is, now I'm going to take care and like get rid of this body, because I guess in his head he thinks that Abby killed Ray, because it's her. He finds the gun, and it's like this terrible, terrible decision that you're like, what? Don't. You want to just scream and be like, no, stop, like.
I was.
But again,
I did scream.
yeah,
I actually did. But like you said something really important there, that these bad decisions always lead to murder. And I think, yes, you're right, but you also take it the other way. And I think that's sort of the intention here, that murder leads to bad decisions. And like that's sort of like when they say blood simple, like
right.
they're referring to simple like in like the sense of like simple minded, like stupidity. And as you see what happens here, like
Mm,
as people in this movie, as the violence escalates, people kind of devolve and they
right.
start thinking less clearly. Their decisions become less calculated, more instinctive, or even primitive. And yeah, so like
Yeah.
like these decisions precipitate bad decisions, which precipitate, and like the whole thing,
Yeah. Yeah.
it sort
Yeah.
of deteriorates very, very quickly. And yeah, I think, it's interesting for filmmakers that feature violence so prominently and in somewhat stylized ways, that I think the message of this movie and maybe even other ones is kind of the denouncement of violence, that violence and
Yeah.
murder really pervert our minds and even our souls.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. Like, you think about when Marty is crawling on the ground and you're like, he can fix everything right now. Like, Ray just make the right decision. Just like he picks him up and it's like, no, now I'm going to bury him alive. It's like,
Right? Yes.
just having flashbacks to one of my favorite movies, Goodfellas, when he's like, or Casino.
Ugh.
Sorry, Casino, when he's that the scene with Joe Pesci, and it's just like, but like, what are you doing? Like, why are you making these terrible decisions? But like you said, it's in the title of the film.
Yeah.
It's you become blood simple. You're not becoming bloodthirsty. You're like your decisions are becoming simple and stupid, and
And like
it just
lustful
lead to
too,
worse
almost.
choices. Yeah.
Yeah, because like,
Mm,
okay, like you're pot committed now. Like you kind of really, the sensible thing to do in that situation is to finish the job, do it clean. If you still got the gun, you
right.
shoot him, put him out of his misery, for God's. But like the choice to bury someone alive is monstrous, like evil. Like that is that is a horrifying way to go. Did you know, this is a total deviation, but so Frederick Chopin, the composer, he was so
Yes.
afraid of the idea of being buried alive that he left in his will, and this was executed, that when he did die, that they had to remove his heart and like take it out of his body, so that when he was buried, there was absolutely no chance that he was like in any way alive. So like being buried alive is a horrifying way to go. That much is clear. And to do that to someone when you don't have to is nuts. And
Yeah,
that's what
dude.
Ray does here. Like, he didn't need to do that.
Yeah. Buried alive is probably one of the worst ways to go.
Gotta be.
It's gotta be. There's a great film, Norwegian film, I think, called Vanishing. And that's sort of a spoiler alert, a large part of it. But
So stay away from Norwegian cinema if you're triggered by being buried alive.
Yeah. I do want to get into the Vesser character though too. And
Yeah.
he is this actor, Emmett Walsh, who has
Mm-hmm.
been in he was this great character actor. He's passed away now, but he was in Blade Runner, and he was like the detective at the beginning of Blade Runner. I'm fairly certain, like 99% sure.
I mean, the one who gets shot? The one who...
Yeah. Because I was sort of watching this like interview with him, and he was Captain Bryant.
Oh, so right.
guess,
He's the one who Deckard, yeah, right, who sends Deckard on the assignment.
yeah, he says,
Yeah,
right.
okay.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Right,
But he's
right.
he's got such an interesting, like, yeah, he's, a cop or like a shady guy or like, and he's sort of been in a ton of these. He's just such an interesting character actor. And I was just captivated by him and his performance.
Yes.
And this like, sort of this like psychotic feeling. Like, I don't know if you got the same vibe, but yeah, like he just plays it so convincingly. I loved him. He was captivating.
Yeah, he's incredible. He has this kind of sweaty charisma. Like you just can't
Yeah.
take your eyes off him in the whole time. And yeah, like the way he laughs, the way he does everything, the way he I mean, there are a couple of moments where there is a fly almost in his eyeball, and he's like
Yeah.
just rolls with it. Like you can tell that I don't know how they could do it. Like it must have just been like it just happened, and he just rolls with it. Like there's
But
a fly crawling
it
around
happens
on
a
him.
couple times.
It does, yeah, exactly right. And he just rolls with it both times, and like I mean, it works so damn well, and just makes the character so upsetting. Like I mean, just everything about him is wrong. You know what I mean? Like it's super gross. And yeah, he's an incredible actor. The whole cast is so good. They almost seem like, and I mean this in the nicest possible way. This cast could be like the guest stars on an episode of Murder She Wrote or something like that. And you know what I mean? Like they're so unremarkable in a lot of ways. And I mean, and again, I mean that in the best way. Like they just look so normal. Like we are intruding upon the lives of real people, not watching actors. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. Frances McDormand. This is her first feature film. I mean,
Oh, she's so young in this.
You obviously
wild.
Yeah, and you get like you just get that
She's
that
so
sort of yeah, like this like the seeds of like, oh, this is an Oscar winning actress. Like she's going to be incredible.
Yeah, she's already
and
that good.
she's
I would say in this, like at this point,
Yeah.
she's all. I'm not like, yeah, I'd give her an Oscar for this. Like this is incredible.
Yeah, and but like, yeah, like you mentioned the fly, and that's another thing that's like just so like the Coen brothers make these interesting choices with respect to like just these like like yeah, having a fly on it. It's like you're like, is that a happy accident? But then there's like another fly later on with Marty, or sorry, with Ray. I don't know if you noticed, but there's like this like fly moment, and then like the buzzer when he
The bug zapper.
when he first the bug zapper, it's like zzz, and then there's that moment with Abby and Ray, and the paper hits the door.
Yeah,
and I don't know if you jumped, like you're like, oh, like it's just it's like you look at that in a script or something, and you're sort of like, well, why does that happen, or what is that? And it just adds to this sort of tension and suspense that there's just so brilliant at building. And it's like these use of these like objects, which are like just these small little choices that they make that just seem to work, and you don't know why they work, but they do.
Yeah, objects and sound as well. Like I mean, there's a lot of scenes where there's a ticking sound. It's sort of subtle. Like it's not super in your face, but
The score
just
too
this,
is so good.
yeah, there's this undertone like of a ticking, and it's putting
Yeah.
you on edge. There's another scene, I think it's when Ray is cleaning up the murder of Marty first in the bar, and you can hear the fan overhead. It's just whoom,
Yeah.
whoom, 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 and it's so effective. I don't know what it makes me feel, but like I don't know. Like you say, it just ratchets up the tension, and you're just totally on edge. And there's a few more things too. Like I mean, like I know there's that scene where Maurice, he gets a message on his machine, and there's this cut from pressing the button on the answering machine to Ray pressing his finger into the back seat of his car where the bloodstains are, and just these fabulous images throughout the movie. It's just really skillful filmmaking. It whether or not they mean anything, they look and feel fantastic.
Yeah, they do. There's just constantly these sort of, man, like you said, these transitions. There's that Abby transition too, where she's like falling back.
That's right.
She transitions to the bed, and yeah, there's and then like, you know, don't even have to mention the lighter, which is just so the Elks Man of the Year lighter. It's just like so distinct in the beginning, and you're just like, oh, this guy is such a Elks guy that it makes so much sense. Like he's just would be that, to have that. And then obviously when it becomes this sort of I guess a red herring or a MacGuffin, or like it has this like important piece for driving the story forward, right? Like he leaves his very identifiable lighter under a bunch of fish on Marty's desk. Like, you're fucked.
Yeah, well, it's perfect because it's a red herring that is, underneath
Right.
what may well be a red herring. I don't know what a red herring
Red
looks like,
herring.
but it's certainly a fish. Yeah, so it's
I
yeah.
mean, so great.
I think I don't think that happened by accident. That was really cool. Another thing that really stuck out to me was the opening scene when they're driving down the highway. Rain is just lashing down. They're having this really terse conversation, and every so often, the headlights of another car go by, and there's just this flash on the screen, flash, and it just, man, does it ever. Oh, it's so cool, and it grips you right away. Though I will say there is a bit of a goof there when they stop the car in that moment. It's not raining. Did you notice that? So like they pull over because there's a car tailing them, and they let the beetle, the car go by them, and it's like bone dry. It's not raining, and there's no evidence of rain. So it's a little.
Didn't even notice.
Yeah, I didn't either. It was. When I was looking at some stuff on IMDb, there was just a little note there of under their goofs category. So
right,
yeah.
But like, I love how you mentioned the headlights. Right, again, the Coens are so good at establishing this device. So they're right from the get go, the headlights, right? And like you said, that's you're like, something's gonna happen, and it's like, next thing you know, obviously the light closes, and then the light they use that same sort of device of a car driving by or whatever to show them in bed together. Mm-hmm. And then again, the headlights while Marty are out crawling on the ground, and Ray's going to kill him, that headlights. And then he sort of sees the headlights of the truck, and it's all these sort of lights and headlights. And then we get the headlights again, and you've established what this, like, something's going to happen with the headlights, right? When after he's buried him, he sees this guy flashing his lights at him, and he's like, and it's like he's sort of at dawn, I guess, and he's driving, and he's like, and you're like, oh fuck, what's gonna happen? And it's just like a guy being like, hey man, turn your lights on. And it's just like a guy waving, right? You see that in No Country, like, he's established with the coin. He's flipping this coin, and Sugar's in the corner store, and you're like, fuck, something, oh god, and then it's like, no, nothing happens. So you're like, they're good at like establishing the suspense, establishing this tension, and then sort of like taking it back and be like, no, well, we're not going to do it right yet, and we're not going to do it now, or it's the same when Maurice shows up at Marty's place or at Ray's place, and it's like, he's going to find out, or he's going to know, and he's like, you took a lot to take the money, like, fuck you for making me do this. And it's like, again, it's like raising tension, and then but not giving the payoff yet. But then when they do pay it off, man, do they ever?
Yeah, no kidding. Getting back to Vesser, the PI character for a sec. There's a few points in this movie where he references Russia. At a time when Russia would have been communist.
Yeah, it was interesting.
Yeah, so in his opening monologue, which is a prelude to our action, he's giving it. We don't know who he is at this point, but he is the speaker in the opening monologue. And he says, and I'm quoting here,
right.
Now in Russia, they got it mapped out so that everyone pulls for everyone else. That's the theory anyway. But what I know about is Texas. Down here, you're on your own. And earlier in that monologue, he talks about how no one helps each other. He says, ask your neighbor for help and watch him fly. So there's this interesting juxtaposition of I think of communism and capitalism, and how that relates to compassion for other people, which I think you can extend to say how money affects compassion. And even though the term blood simple is not used in this movie, the Private Vesser uses the phrase money simple at one point, saying, I must have gone money simple. This kind of murder, it's too damn risky. So in a similar fashion, I think, to how violence changes our minds, so too does money. It can have that effect. It can make you behave irrationally. It can make you do things you wouldn't normally do. It can drive you to murder. And so I think that's an important statement here of the film. But I also think that, first of all, the idea that the Soviet Union under communism was devoid of violence and murder is just wrong. And the Coens would know that, I'm sure. So I think the comic becomes a broader one on the human condition and our penchant for violence, no matter the context.
Yeah. I love how you mentioned that money simple line. That must have been gone money simple. That's kind of murder. It's too damn risky. And it's like, there was a lot of moments in the film too, where I felt like you question why a character is making the decision they're making. Like, why, you could say, like, why would Vesser kill Marty? Why wouldn't he was there. He could kill Ray and Abby and just be done with it. But then, like you said, in his head, it's like, now he can get the money. He kills Marty. Nobody else knows about this. Like, he can just kill Marty, have the money, and then he's the only one that knows, right? Like,
and frame her in the process. So it's a much cleaner story for the authorities. You know, it really
exactly.
Yeah.
It makes sense. You know, and then when you start kind of adding up these parts, it's like you said, it's almost like Hitchcockian, where he's just like, this causes this, which causes that, and it's just all sort of, but it all makes sense, you know, and it all sort of relates, and there's no like, well, that character wouldn't do that, or that doesn't make any sense, or why would this happen, you know what I mean? It all sort of adds up in the end.
Totally, but there was a moment where I thought it wasn't going to, because like when Ray first goes to the bar, first goes to the bar, I didn't understand why he was there and why the hell he was trying to clean up the murder scene. I was just like, dude, like,
well, when he discovers the body.
Yeah, when he discovers Marty's body and he starts mopping up the blood, and I'm just thinking, like, what are you doing, dude? Like, I was thinking for a moment, I had been loving the movie up to that point, and I was thinking, like, this stupid decision, now I hate this movie, like, I'm totally off it. And then I realized, I was like, oh no, he knows that that's her gun, like, you know.
Yeah.
And I know, maybe you had mentioned this before, that maybe he thinks that Abby did it. I'm not so sure about that. I think maybe he just knows that the gun was taken and then used in the murder. I you know, it's sort of debatable, but like, the point is that there is now, like, you know, this makes sense. Okay, like, he's cleaning up because he doesn't want Abby to be implicated because her gun is left at the scene, and yeah, like, and then it just sort of, everything sort of snowballs from there, and there's decision after decision and fallout of decisions, and everything sort of precipitates the next thing, and it all just deteriorates and goes to hell, and eventually most people are dead, and you know, at no point have the police showed up, which is amazing to me. there's zero involvement of any bystanders, neighbors, or
no, this is the 80s. This is the 80s, man. No cops or anybody. But you know, again, they probably had to keep the cast pretty small. Like, there's only really 5 characters in the film, and then I guess like the blonde at the bar, and you know, there's extras and stuff, obviously, but like 5 principals. And you know, I love how you mentioned that sort of the gun, the Abby gun. And again, a brilliance by the Coen brothers to have sort of this idea, like, you know, you see the shot of him opening the gun and seeing the bullets. So there's 6 chambers or 5 chambers? 5 chambers.
6.
6. Sorry, correct.
That's why I call it a 6 shooter.
6 chambers. You would know. And sure, I guess. 6 shooter. So there's 6 and there's 3 bullets, right? So it's very intentional, right? Where they are in the gun. Because you're sort of watching it and you're like, first there's the one shot. He shoots Ray. Sorry, he shoots Marty. I keep screwing up Ray and Marty. Vesser shoots Marty. One shot. Okay. And then when Ray comes in, he steps on the gun and there's another shot, right?
Yep.
So there's 2 right there. Then when he's getting buried alive, pulls it 3 times. Click, click. Very, very deliberate 3 times. So then there's 1 left and it's her shooting, pulling the trigger, and killing him at the very end.
Yeah.
Which is like very deliberate, but very like, cause I know when he was getting him buried, I'm thinking it's like, there's still bullets in the gun, isn't there? There should be. I didn't really think about it until after the film. I'm sort of thinking about all of them and thinking about, that it was, again, very, very like smart shot, brilliant. Okay, we didn't have just all the bullets, or we didn't have, it's just smart filmmaking.
Well, I think it's cool too because at that point, like you say, there's one bullet left and three people. So it presents you with this question: okay,
Yeah,
who's it for? Who makes it out of this alive? Who gets shot? And of course, only one person makes it out alive, and it's Abby. And boy, does she ever earn it! Like, I mean, that scene, like we touched on it briefly. Like, man, oh man, it's so visceral. Like she's being pursued. She climbs out the window. I mean, it's just like, yeah, it's it's one of the more it's one of the more tense scenes I've seen in a long, long time. I gotta say, and just
yeah,
like, yeah, like the violence of it is so. I mean, it's so static. Like, it's not like there's a lot of. It's not like a big scene where people are getting slashed and there's a lot of, like, dynamism to it. It's just his hand is pinned to that windowsill, and he, like, you can see him trying to move it a little bit, and it's so excruciating to watch. It's an incredible bit of acting and filmmaking.
yeah. They make you sit with it, right? Which is so
Yeah.
great. You have to sit with that, and then I mean, I don't know if you were doing it too. I was sitting, like, I was watching, and I was like, oh god, and then my hands started being like I'm just, you just start envisioning your hand and what that pain would be like.
I
And
could
just
feel it
like,
right there. I could feel it between
yeah,
my fingers because I was thinking, like, that's the only way he's getting out of this. Oh man!
yeah.
And then you gotta. I mean, thankful for him that there's some shitty walls in that place.
Just hulks through it. Like I feel like and that doesn't even feel like a stretch, right? You're like, I feel like I would probably punch through a fucking wall if my hand was
Well,
doing
like
that
he
too.
perforates it first with the gun, so that was, that,
Yeah.
weakens it. That makes perfect sense. And then yeah, just slugs his way through the drywall, which I'm sure if you were sufficiently motivated. But you also got to imagine every time he's cocking back and swinging, it's
Oh
pulling
yeah.
on that
It's
same
just
hand.
pulling.
Because, like,
Ugh.
I think it was the opposite one too, right? Because he reaches around awkwardly like that, and it gets pinned, and then
Yeah, it's yeah.
yeah, it's just, oh man, it's brutal, just brutal. But
So the
yeah, so cool.
last thing I want to mention before we get into if this is a hell of a picture or not, I do want to talk about that last moment. So we talked about him punching through the wall and then sort of like walking over, and she shoots him, and she thinks it's Ray, which is, sorry, thinks it's fucking Christ. She thinks it's Marty, which is great, right? And she's like, and then it's, she says that line, I'm not afraid of you, Marty. And then he starts, well, ma'am, if I see him, I'll give him the message, which is so good. He knows he's going to
Hmm.
die. But that interesting shot of him laying on the ground and just sort of like staring blankly, sort of like looking at the sink. What did you take from that? Like, what did you gather from him looking at the sink, seeing this sort of droplet of water spool, and then cut to black?
Yeah, it's interesting. He's looking up at the underside of the sink, like he's back down on the ground, and he's looking up, and you can see the
Yep.
plumbing, the exposed pipes leading up to the sink, and there's condensation forming on it, and it sort of threatens to drop, but I don't think it actually drops. And
Yeah, no, it
I
doesn't. Yeah.
it's tough to say. Like, I mean, there's some shots earlier in the movie of blood dripping from Marty's hand when he's
Yep.
dying, and then Ray wringing out the towel that he sopped up the blood with. And
Yes.
there's a
Yeah.
few images of liquid and water, and I don't know, like, exactly what it's a great lingering image to go out on. And yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't really have any concrete thoughts on it. What did you take away from it?
Yeah. I don't know. I like maybe the simplicity, that just like sort of like the randomness, because this movie does feel a bit random, and the Coen brothers
Hmm.
kind of do, like, yeah, we make these choices, but it's sort of like randomness of sort of like these characters' decisions and just like choices that they make, and it's just sort of this random nothing shot, and you're just like, oh, this is what we're ending on. This is this lasting image. But I also sort of have this idea of like waiting for the other shoe to drop, or waiting for that like moment, like you're sort of waiting in anticipation of like something bigger happening, and then it's just this is it. This is like,
Mm.
you know, I don't really know if that makes sense, but it's like
Well, it kind of does because, like you say, like that drop is just sort of trembling there, waiting to fall, and like this
yeah,
whole movie, like tension is a big part of this movie. So we are constantly
yes,
waiting,
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
and like we've seen, violence precipitates violence, and people get drawn into this thing, and like it seems like you sort of can't get away from it. There's an inevitability to the kind of the proliferation of violence and violence begetting violence, and so you just sort of yeah, maybe the image has something to do with that. Like just sort of maybe there is something coming for Abby eventually. She's started down this
yeah,
path.
maybe, yeah,
Things have gotten blood simple. Maybe there's no going back for her. She's sort of this droplet, just sort of on the precipice, like waiting to fall. And
yeah. It is
yeah,
sort of nice though that she is, they don't kill her off. Like
yeah,
she is sort of this last thing. It's like not unlike in No Country when the wife gets killed at the end. It's just sort of like,
yeah.
oh, in this story, yeah, she's not without guilt in her actions, but like
Hmm.
I also, you sort of get the vibe, and this is I think why it's important with that scene with the bartender and the blonde, right? You sort of get a vibe that that Marty is a fucking dirtbag anyway.
Definitely.
He's like, tell him that you're, so it's like I feel like she's just, she's done with him. Like she's probably caught him cheating a bunch before, and then she's started having eyes for Ray, and she acted on it. So it's like,
Hmm.
yeah, she's committed a adultery, I guess, but she wasn't the first one to cast. She didn't cast the first stone. So like she's sort of the most innocent character, because then you think about Ray, and you're just like, I guess he didn't do anything too bad, but then you're like, oh wait, no, he buried somebody alive.
Yeah,
Like, are
you
you
could
kidding
argue
me?
he committed the worst crime of anybody in this whole thing.
Yeah, and obviously the private investigator is a scumbag, and Marty, I'll sort of end on this. Like, I sort of like that Marty. There was they have this ability to create human characters, even though they're scumbags, right? Marty is a scumbag. You get that impression off the hop, but you do sort of kind of feel bad for him. And then when he thinks that they're actually dead, like he goes and throws up, and
Hmm.
he's just like he can't really stomach it. It's like I don't, I think he's very hurt and upset, but I think he does have regret, and that's again the choices that these characters make that we follow. So I think it's pretty incredible acting, really great writing and directing, and that'll bring me to my question to you: is this a hell of a picture? Can the Coen brothers on our podcast go 2 for 2 so far?
Yeah, I mean, like we said, this movie presages a lot of what the Coens would go on to do. Like you can see No Country and
Mhm.
Fargo in this for sure, and probably some other ones too. The tone, the tension, how vital the setting is to both of those. The
Yeah.
casting, it's all just really, really friggin' strong. I kind of expected to walk away from this feeling similarly to how I felt about Following, the debut Christopher Nolan film. That it was really
Right.
good, but just not quite there yet. A little raw, maybe a little unpolished, but this movie was all the way there. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
right out of the gate, this is a terse 95 minutes of tremendous filmmaking. I
Wild.
loved it. Hell of a picture for me.
Oh man, I'll second that. Without a doubt, a hell of a picture.
Yeah.
I love this. Been years since I've seen it. I forgot a bunch of things from it, but man, like you said, early filmmakers, you sort of see the seeds that are being planted for later choices. Like, we see that a lot with Nolan, Villeneuve. Big filmmakers that are very popular these days. You can see it in their early work. But man, this was more like this felt more like, I don't want to compare them to Tarantino because they were before Tarantino, but like Tarantino starts with dogs, and you're like, people can make that argument that Reservoir Dogs is still his best picture, and people
Mm.
won't really bat an eye at that. Same with the Coen brothers. People could say Blood Simple is still their best film, and I don't think people would have an issue with that because it is so good. And it's like, wow, this is like a tense and suspenseful and just kind of everything you want in a neo-noir film. And sort of, I loved every second of it. And so yeah, there you go. Another hell of a picture for the Coen brothers. And that'll bring us to our next Coen brothers film, which is one note you mentioned this way back at the beginning, and I forgot to touch on it, but you sort of mentioned that Joel is director, Ethan is producer, vice versa. They're both directors. They're both producers. It's like it's a stupid, weird, like, I guess like with the Directors Guild and like the Producers Guild of America, like you can only have one person like on, so they like, but like you said, they're both now they've gone on to both work on things themselves, like Joel's done his own work, Ethan's done his own work, but when they are working on a film together, and they're both directing, which is pretty wild. And from everything we've sort of heard, like they would never argue on set, and they would never, like, I'm sure they would have disagreements, but like,
sure,
they were like two brains and one brain and two bodies sort of thing. So, but we're doing another Coen brothers, and we're going to dive into, and we're going to keep, I don't know where exactly we're going to go. We haven't sort of nailed all of it down, but I know the next one is going to be Raising Arizona, which is their follow-up to this film.
Okay.
Raising Arizona, which is a comedy, kind of like a weird screwball comedy made a couple of years after this in '87 with Nicolas Cage. We haven't done a lot of Nicolas Cage movies.
Not enough.
Which is sort of sad. Yeah. And this
Maybe
is early Cage.
Yeah.
Which one did we do?
We did The
I
Rock.
can't remember. Oh, right. The Rock. Yeah.
Oh, and Zeus's butthole.
Yeah. Yeah, we did that in person. Raising Arizona, though. Have you ever seen Raising Arizona?
I think I've seen bits of it, or I might be confusing it with Leaving Las Vegas. I just
Two totally different movies.
But they're both Cage,
You're
right?
like Cage with like warm southern climate cities.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or, I guess cities. Arizona's a state, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Is he super strung out in both of them? I feel like he's
yeah, he's Cage, man. He's Cage.
Okay.
But this is like, which is great with Cage because, like, yeah, you're going to see, like, people, I think for us, we grew up with a Nicolas Cage that was, like you said, Con Air, The Rock, Face Off. It was like action heavy Cage, and seeing him sort of in this comedic element, with Raising Arizona, it was like, oh, wow. He was like, oh, this guy's a comedy actor. Like, really, he's like batshit crazy and hilarious. And I think this is a great follow-up to Blood Simple, because we've done sort of two of these darker Coen brothers films. And now we'll see, like, they have some ability to be really funny, and they've done a bunch of funny movies. Lebowski, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, Burn After Reading. There's, again, it's, as I was mentioning earlier, this idea of their genres, right? They're sort of fluid. They have these, we didn't even get into it, but Blood Simple, there is some pretty funny parts in this film. And,
when everybody
but
drives the wrong way up the street to the dead end of Ray's,
exactly.
Funny. Like, especially when Marty does it, they say, it's like, boy, I would have loved to see his face when he realized it was a dead end. Like, that's a good line. It's
good.
amusing.
And then we get it again when Maurice drives away, and you're just sort of waiting because you're in on the joke now, right?
That's right. Exactly.
It's great. Okay, Raising Arizona on our next episode. Yeah, that's great. So that'll be Coen Brothers 2 for 2, man. This is good. This is a good start.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, looking forward to Raising Arizona. Sweet. First time for me, and always enjoy a bit of Cage. So love getting in the cage, as it were. Yeah.
In the cage, amazing.
High praise.
There's another. That's another high praise. There's another good run for us We'll get in the cage with Nicolas Cage.
That's
Amazing.
right. And
That's
also Andy
the
Samberg.
SNL, right?
Yeah, exactly. We'll just
Yeah.
we'll just do a bunch of Andy Samberg and Nicolas Cage. It'll be good stuff.
Amazing. Okay, so for David Hollandshurst, my name is Andrew Bartlett, and this has been another episode of Hell of a Picture.